We have with us today John Hogan from the Build-A-Bear Corporation. They're headquartered in St. Louis at Page and 170. Everyone at Build-A-Bear has a name. His name is, or his title is, New Business Development Bear. Like I would be President Bear.
That's true.
Yeah.
Actually, we have with us tonight, this afternoon, Fred and Diane Bear.
Yeah.
Raise your hand, Fred and Diane. There you go.
Well, there's a professor of teleology there.
And we're in the middle of a bear market.
Oh, that's bad.
Blue, huh?
We want a bull market.
Okay, enough bear to go around. John joined Build-A-Bear in 2005. His focus is maximizing the Build-A-Bear Workshop brand and entertainment retail concepts through unique locations and ideas, such as the make-your-own mascot stores in Major League ball stadiums and an educationally focused store at the St. Louis Zoo, which has proven that this entertainment retail concept has staying power and can be easily adapted outside of the traditional location. John has an extensive retail background with experience in both the domestic and international markets. He possesses a global perspective with strong interpersonal skills and ability to solve worldwide problems, and has a proven track record. Prior to joining Build-A-Bear Workshop, John has a distinguished career with the May Department Stores Company. In 1984, he started as a market representative in the merchandising division, and by the time he left, over 20 years later, he had lived in Hong Kong, seen the world with his family, and managed all overseas offices. Let's give a warm Jefferson County welcome to John Hogan.
Thanks, Wayne. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm not going to probably use a mic because being an ex-New Yorker, I have a kind of loud voice. And if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm not from St. Louis. I grew up in the Bronx, New York. I was born about a mile north of Yankee Stadium. I am a diehard Yankee fan. But my second favorite team is the St. Louis Cardinals. And that is a true story because back in the 60s and 70s, I hated the Mets. And the Cardinals and Mets had great rivalries, and I was big fans of, well, Ken Boyer, because his brother played for the Yankees, Cleat. Roger Maris, believe it or not, was my favorite Yankee, not Mickey Mantle. So when Roger Maris was traded here to St. Louis, I kind of got even more, respect and allegiance toward the St. Louis Cardinals. So the first thing that I found out when I came to St. Louis 15 years ago is you got to tell everybody, where'd you go to high school? Okay, I went to St. Raymond's Boys High School in the Bronx, New York, which was taught by the Christian Brothers, and I lived not too far from CBC off of Highway 40 and 141. I went to college, small Catholic college up in New Rochelle, New York, called Iona. So when I used to say that fast, people would say to me, "You own a college?" No, I do not own a college. It's spelled I-O-N-A. It was a commuter college, and most of the students, and this is in 1969, were commuters from either the Bronx, Upper Manhattan, and Queens. And it was mostly Irish and Italian. And the college was located on North Avenue in New Rochelle, New York. So the Irish called it Irish on North Avenue. The Italians called it Italians on North Avenue. And our competition, which was St. John's in Manhattan, called us Idiots on North Avenue. A little personal story. In 1969, that was the first year that Iona College admitted women. So there in 69, I met this young lady named Maura Finn. And we became friends, never dated her. And make a long story short, 10 years later, a friend of mine who I did date at Iona was at a wedding and said, "You know what, I met Maura Finn. She's not seeing anybody. I think you guys would make a great couple." Lo and behold, made a phone call, and next 2 weeks we celebrate our 24th wedding anniversary. I have two daughters. My oldest is 23, went to Loyola in Baltimore, Maryland. Works for HMS Host as a merchandise planner. Why she got the merchandise genes from, I have no idea. And my youngest is a senior at Mizzou. So that's a little bit about John Hogan and his family and some personal notes. Now, what does a new business development bear do at Build-A-Bear Workshop? And Wayne was correct. Maxine, who was the founder, is called the Chief Executive Bear. Our Chief Financial Officer is not called Chief Financial Officer, she is called Chief Financial Bear. Okay, so as the new business development bear at Build-A-Bear Workshop, what I do is I respond to, investigate, follow up any inquiries that we get or I feel present an option for Build-A-Bear Workshop to have a store in a non-mall location. And by non-mall location, I mean non-mall in terms of your traditional malls like the Galleria, West County, etc. So that's basically what I do. And how I got to Build-A-Bear was Maxine and I worked together at May Company. We knew of each other, but our paths never crossed because we were never in the same division at the same time. And about in 2005, a friend of mine sent a resume in and said, listen, I think John Hogan would be good for this job. And we met and we talked, and she said, listen, I'm outsourcing this. We had just opened, we were only in 2 ballparks at that time. We were in Philly and Cincinnati. And she says, John, listen, you love sports. Why don't you come do this and work for me, and I'll leave you alone and you can have fun. So I joined Build-A-Bear Workshop, and we opened up the Cleveland Indians in opening day of 2005. And then I got involved and basically tied the ribbon and dotted the I's and T's with the St. Louis Cardinals, which we opened. We just completed our 3rd year. So this was our 4th year in Philly. This is our 4th year in Cincinnati, our 3rd year in St. Louis. And San Francisco we just completed our 3rd year. And we opened up this year in the new Nationals ballpark in Washington, D.C. So what a great partnership that is. Build-A-Bear, nation's capital, baseball, and they got a great mascot in Screech, who is the eagle. Okay, so these are our 5 mascot bears. We got to start off with the king. Okay, here's Fredbird. Everybody been to the Make Your Own Fredbird store at Busch Stadium? Okay, it's been a very successful store with us, so we just completed our 3rd year there. Then we got the Philly Fanatic, who's the first mascot that was inducted into the Mascot Hall of Fame. There is a Mascot Hall of Fame. Then the least attractive mascot is Gapper from the Cincinnati Reds. Then one of the cute ones is we got Lucille. Oh, and Lucille's not dressed properly. He's a New York Bear. But this is the San Francisco Giants. It's Make Your Own Lucille. So what we do when we go into these stadiums is our signage and our blade sites is always the mascot's name first. So it's Make Your Own Fred by Build-A-Bear Workshop, Make Your Own Lucille by Build-A-Bear Workshop, and obviously I've showed you Screech. Okay? So today we're in 5 ballparks. We also opened up a store 3 years ago in the St. Louis Zoo, and we're coming up this March with our 2nd anniversary in the St. Louis Science Center. And what's different about the St. Louis Science Center is it's our first non-mall location where we've done 2 brands under one roof. We have Build-A-Dino and we have Build-A-Bear Workshop. It's a big store, it's 2,400 square feet. So basically what we did was not physically, but graphic-wise, we divided the store in half. So when you walk in, everything to the left and making an L is all Build-A-Dino, and it's got the Build-A-Dino graphics and painting. And on the right, it's Build-A-Bear Workshop, and it's got our primary colors, which is red, yellow, and blue. Our whole office is painted in red, yellow, and blue. All the chairs are blue. So basically, it's the same colors that you see in a store. Obviously, this is the uniform we wear when we go out and make presentations. We got the denim shirt. You have to wear khaki pants. You have to have a belt. And if you go into a stadium store, you wear white sneakers. So the St. Louis Center has been really good because it's taught us that 2 brands can work under one brand. And that room is big enough that we can conduct birthday parties. Okay. In Major League Baseball, there's 30 teams. In the zoos, you think there's a lot of zoos, you think there's a lot of science centers, and you think there's a lot of museums around the country. But what we have learned since we've been doing Philly for 4 years is We need about 2 million in attendance for the model to work because of our build-out costs are very high. And then all these stadium stores are non-mall locations. We do the entire build-out, meaning they give us these 4 walls as you'd see it here. We do the painting, we do the graphics, we supply the equipment. We own the inventory, so there's no inventory risk for the teams. We staff the store with our own people. So it's very expensive for us to do the build-out. And we've learned that in order for us to make money or break even, we need about 2 million in attendance. But what we do, how do you capture that? How do you understand that? Okay, so you know you get 2 million. The baseball teams supply us every week their in-park attendance. Why in-park versus gate? Because in-park, you're in the park. Gate means you have a ticket, you never showed up. And with the economy this bad this year, even in St. Louis, their in-park attendance was 90%. So that's basically 1 out of every 10 customers who had a ticket wasn't showing up at the ballpark. Multiply that by 81 games and an average attendance of 40,000. That's a big slip-off. So that's why we want in-park attendance, because we can manage who's in the park. Then we know what our transactions are. So it's real simple. You know what your transactions are. You know what your average sale is. You do the math. This is the projected sales. You know what your build-out costs are. You know what your expenses are. So the sweet spot or the break-even point for us is 2 million. We've turned down some Major League Baseball teams. We've turned down the Pirates. We've turned down the Royals, and we've turned down the Rays. Now, you could say the Rays could be a mistake because they might be playing for the World Championship. But still, their attendance prior to this year was under 2 million. It was about 1.8 million. So if you're a team now, and you pick the Pittsburgh Pirates or any team that wants to come and calls us up and says, listen, we're interested in a store, we have a report card. Okay, we look at this. This is what I look at. I do a 5-year analysis of their attendance. So what's the average for their attendance the last 5 years? What's their win-loss record for the last 5 years? Where have they finished the last 5 years? Are they a playoff team? Do they have playoff possibilities? And what's the team history? That's all statistical evidence. So on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being lowest, 5 being highest, we assign a ranking. So that's 20 points. Now the mascot is real subjective. Okay, you can't, is he a good mascot, bad mascot? The only thing you can find out about that is going on the team's web and trying to understand how he interacts with the fans. But what I do also is any team that's interested in a store, I actually make a visit. I go up and I meet with the team. We walk the stadium. They show me a location. Maybe it might be 1 or 2 or 3 location options. Then what I do is once the game starts, we have found that after the 3rd inning, kids get restless. They will walk. Okay, they will walk the stadium. So at the end of the 3rd inning, I get up out of my seat and I review all the locations that the team has presented us as a possible site. And then you can see the traffic flow and determine is this good or bad or different. We need about 850 square feet for the store to be profitable and to work. We need about 650 of retail space, and we need about 200 square feet of storage room because the stuffing bales that come in are huge. They're big, they're heavy, cumbersome, et cetera, and we need storage area. Sometimes it's part of the store, sometimes it's in an adjacent area. So that sometimes turns off a lot of teams and saying, I can't give you 850 square feet. That's just too much retail space that you're looking for. So that's basically how some of it works in terms of, okay, the logistics, how do you evaluate a team? We're talking to the Kansas City Royals now because they're opening up, they're remodeling Kauffman Stadium, and they're putting a whole kids interactive area in the outfield. But it's inside the concourse, inside the stadium, but outside. And we have found in San Francisco that model works because in San Francisco, we are outside, but we're inside the stadium. In left center field in San Francisco at AT&T Park, they have an area called the Coca-Cola fan lot area. They have a huge glove, and the glove is the big meeting place. I'll just meet you at the glove. And in the Coca-Cola fan lot area, they have on one end a mini AT&T Park, and at the other end, that's where we are. So it's a great match. We have 2 bookends for the Giants. They have a little wiffle ball field where the kids hit the ball and run around, and they have us at the end of the left center field pavilion. Also in the Coca-Cola fan lot area are 3 slides. That Coke bottle, inside the Coke bottle is 3 slides that the kids can ride down. And they also have a photo op opportunity underneath the Coke bottle where the kids can go and get a picture taken as if they're in a ball player in a giant uniform where they're jumping against the wall and making a catch. So location, location, location is really key to us. In St. Louis, you can't beat the location. You go in that gate, basically it's the Stan Musial gate, that's 80% of the fans in Busch Stadium enter through that gate. You make a right, the first concession on the right is the Build-A-Bear Workshop store. If you come out of the center of our store, there's a gate or aisle going right into the field. You walk up that gate, you're basically behind home plate. So it's a great location. The other thing we found out about our locations, we need to be close to a ladies' room. Because that's where they take the kids. In Busch Stadium, there's a ladies' room right next to our store. So these are some of the things that we've learned over the course of the years in terms of, besides location, who else is going to be in there with us? Is it kid-friendly? Does it mirror our brand? Is there a ladies' room nearby? Does it fit our square footage requirements, etc.? So there's a lot of thought that goes into these. And some of these deals could go as fast as 6 months, and some could negotiate for as long as 2 years. We started 2 years ago with the Cardinals because one of the things we found also that's beneficial to us, if you're building a new stadium, we want to be part of the construction because it reduces our expenses. So as they're building the stadium, you're being part of that building of the stadium. So that happened in Busch Stadium, and that happened in Washington Nationals Park. In Washington Nationals Park, the same thing. They created a whole kids area, and I don't know if you know, but the Nationals have the 4 racing presidents, and they race around the field at the end of the 4th inning, and poor George Washington in all the years of the Washington Nationals has never won a race. So we're trying to fix it so that George can win a race with Bury Me, and we can have a little party up at our store. But again, we're in a kids interactive area. They have the racing presidents, so after the 4th inning, all the kids can come there and they can get their picture free with the racing presidents. So that draws a lot of traffic. Then there's the Sony interactive area where the kids get on the computers and play all these little games. Then it's our store, and next to our store is a kids restaurant, kids foods only. Small hamburgers, small hot dogs, small sodas, and then there's an interactive batting cage and pitching cage. So those are the areas that we like to be tied in if a team's doing any of these interactive, kids, family-friendly zones. And more baseball teams are doing that. So they're trying to get the young kids to come back, stay, because they're afraid they're losing them, and they want to make it more family-friendly so that more families can come. And they're going to try to make it more affordable. The Washington Nationals already this year announced that they're reducing their ticket prices for next year. I've been following Major League Baseball. I'm 57. I've been following since I'm 7 years old, probably. And this is the first time in history that I'm aware of that MLB.com set up a separate site this year for the best values in baseball. And every team, including the New York Yankees, that draws 4 million people a year, had discounted ticket packages. The San Francisco Giants, if you bought 4 tickets for $75, they were giving you a $25 gas coupon. So that's how tough it got in terms of how they were promoting to get fans back into the store. And Major League Baseball was off this year. It was down from last year from the first time in, I can't remember. And the economy and the gas prices and all that. But some of the teams are already taking steps for next forward to try to be competitive, more competitive, so that they don't lose the fan. Some of the bigger teams have said no to us because the financials don't work. They want more money than we can afford. They can't give us the 800 square feet. So it works both ways. We say no to some teams have said no to us. We started 6 months ago. We started in January, and in June, the Yankees and Build-A-Bear decided to disagree, and we couldn't agree on a location, and we couldn't agree on what they wanted versus what we wanted, and we just parted company. But we were in negotiations for 6 months. A cute little story. Here's how we got into the Yankees. I joined Build-A-Bear, and no one could get into the Yankees. No one. Couldn't get a phone call, return phone call. Joe Torre came out here when the Yankees and Cardinals played in 2005 in interleague play. We contribute heavily to Joe Torre's Abused Children's Fund. he couldn't even get us into the front door to the Yankees. So, last July, George Steinbrenner and the Yankees turned 77 on July 4th. I sent him a bear, dressed up, fully head to toe in a Yankee uniform. I get a note back. And I got Mr. Steinbrenner now, the Yankees, talking bear language. He says, this was the greatest gift this was the berry, and he's got berry in quotation marks. This was the very best gift my granddaughter got. How great it was to see a bear in Yankee pinstripes. And he goes on, and he says at the end, thank you so much for remembering my birthday, and I will forward the materials that you sent me to my front office people in New York. Well, what do I have now? I got a return letter from George Steinbrenner, and I got his direct phone number. So, number 2, how do you get in the door? You become best friends with his or her administrative assistant. Her name was Judith. Judith and I became best friends. I treated Judith like she had more power than George Steinbrenner. And I was talking to Judith, and lo and behold, I said, I still haven't heard from New York. Give me 10 days. Nothing happens. So this went on for about 6 weeks, and finally I called her. I said, Judith, oh, by the way, I also sent Judith a bear because Judith said, that was so nice. We're all talking about it in the offices because they're in Tampa Bay. I said, Judith, I'll send you one. So now Judith's got her own pinstripe bear. Make a long story short, I called Judith after 6 months, and I said, Judith, I still haven't heard from anybody from New York. She goes, Mr. Hogan, will you hold on, please, 1 second? She goes, calls back 5 minutes. She says, someone from New York will be calling you in the next 5 minutes. And that's what happened. We got into New York. We had a meeting with them, and it was kind of really fun because when you're part of when you can be part of a new stadium and they're showing you all the drawing plans and everything, it's pretty cool. Well, this went on for about 6 months, and unfortunately, but you know what? We went away friendly. We're still on good terms with them. You know, who knows? We could do a game day giveaway with them because we do game day giveaways with about 10 Major League Baseball teams where we don't have stores like the Chicago Cubs. What happens is they get a third-party sponsor. In this case, it's usually Pepsi. Pepsi's one of their corporate sponsors. And they will buy the bear from us, and the Pepsi logo will be on the bear. And they'll dress up the Cub bear either with the Cub logo sometimes, a Cub hat. The Mets did it for St. Patty's Day in August, and they put the bear was green. So we do 10 giveaways with 10 of the Major League Baseball teams. And there are some teams that would love to have us, but they don't have the space. Chicago Cubs, you know. We've been doing game day giveaways with them since we probably the last 7 or 8 years, but that stadium is so small, they can't, there's probably 900 square feet of retail available in the whole place. Same with Boston. These old parks are really tough. So what we did in Boston was we opened up a store in Faneuil Hall, which is a big tourist attraction, and we put in our own section of Wally the Green, he's a green monster. Wally the Green Monster is their mascot bear. So that's some of the, how it works in terms of how do you know a team is right for you? What are the requirements that are needed by us? And there's also requirements that are needed by them. I mean, the Mets came to us and said, thanks, but no thanks, but we need $1 million more. And we said, $1 million more? We're not even going to do that in a year. You're crazy. And then when you get into science centers and zoos, you say to yourself, wow, that's a wide open field. Do you know there's only about 7 zoos in the country that draw over 2 million? San Diego Zoo is number 1 by 59,000 over the St. Louis Zoo. San Diego's about 3,075,000, and St. Louis Zoo is 325. So it's real close. But there's only 7 zoos that draw over 2 million. And then when you get into, and the one unique thing that we found about the St. Louis Zoo, it's free. When something's free, people have more money to spend. At game day giveaways, no matter what a team is giving away, we have a better day in our store when the guests or the fans come in and they're getting something free. And then when you look at the price of admission, to get into the San Diego Zoo, family of 4 is $72 without parking. So that's another thing we look at. When I looked at the zoos, science centers, and museums, besides looking at attendance, I look, what does it cost for a family of 4 to get in here? And it becomes very expensive. And I have some stats there just to share with you in terms of how narrow the field is. Actually, there's 7 zoos that have attendance more than 1.5 million. There's only 2 greater than 3 million, which we just talked about, San Diego and St. Louis. And there's 3 zoos greater than 2 million. So it's a real narrow field. In museums, there's only 3 museums that draw more than 2.5 million, and there's 12 greater than 1.2. So it's a real narrow playing field in terms of how do you make it work. We were all set to go into the National Air and Space Museum in the Smithsonian. We had a location. We were going to be on the 2nd floor. They were going to take out the bookstore, and we were going to get the whole 2nd floor. And unfortunately, when we were actually in contract, the lawyers were wordsmithing the language, and then that scandal hit the Smithsonian Business Ventures. There was some corruption and financial improprieties, et cetera, and Congress really slapped it. Congress took $20 million out of their budget, replaced everybody at the top, renamed it. Instead of Smithsonian Business Ventures, it's now Smithsonian Enterprises. Macy's wanted us to go into Herald Square on the 7th floor. We're a non-union company. Macy's Herald Square, Macy's has only 4 union stores throughout the country. Macy's Herald Square is one of them. So obviously you're not going to have a non-union company going into a union or location. And the same thing happened with the American Museum of Natural History in New York. They had a location for us, but again, all of their retail employees were union, we're non-union. So that's one of the first questions I also ask, union, non-union, because that's a deal breaker. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
I guess your formula, you won't work in NFL stadiums or NBA.
Great question. We've studied that because a lot of people come to call and say, but it's 80,000 fans. Yeah, it's 80,000 fans, 10 games. So it's 800,000. Then, NFL in particular, I grew up in the East Coast. I went to the Giant games in December. You wouldn't take, sometimes adults don't go, it's so cold. So you're going to take a kid. My wife, when we first got married, drove me crazy because every November and December I was away, and it was either birthdays, anniversaries, or Irish stool stamp dancing lessons. So finally I said, I'll fix her. I took her to a game in the Giants Meadowland in December. It was about 15 below zero. She spent the whole game in the ladies' room underneath the heater, and she said to me, you can go to all the Giant games you want and don't invite me. The NFL, so in a lot of these cold weather places, even if the attendance was right, it wouldn't work because you're not going to take a kid in Chicago, in New York, in that kind of cold weather. And the other thing, NFL, pre and post game tailgating in some of these big cities, like I could tell from experience from it's just as important as the game. And it's a guy thing. It's not a family thing. And the same thing, we looked at hockey and basketball. We even if a team or arena plays both hockey and hockey and basketball, unfortunately here in St. Louis you only have hockey. But we looked at the Knicks and Rangers. Again, the capacity is 19,500. It's 41 home games. And then we even looked at our first step because the Indiana Pacers called us and said, listen, we want you to come to this Conseco Fieldhouse. And they had the Pacers only, they didn't have hockey. They had a WNBA team. And then they said, but we have 200 events here out of 365 days. So we asked for the schedule. We said, we want to see all the events and we want to see the attendance. Because right away, the first thing that goes off in your mind, he says, wait a minute, you got the circus coming into town. You got Disney on Ice. You got all these kids shows coming in. But then when we looked at it, Disney on Ice comes in for 10 days, but they're only drawing 5,000 people per event. So just think about, the turnkey. We got electricity. You got to staff the store. So even looking at events other than sports that's happening in the arena, it didn't work. And there are some events that probably, we wouldn't want to be a part of. Some concerts, it's not the image that, or the brand that we are today. And some of those events too, when the concerts come in, and you've seen it, they put the black draping over all the concessions and they just sell what they want to sell. But yeah, we've looked at the NFL, we looked at the NBA. Now, but you can go into our stores and you can go onto our web and you can buy any uniform because we are the licensee of Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA, the WNBA, all the major sports. And so If you go into, you'll be able to buy blue stuff now in our stores because we're in the NHL licensee. If there was a basketball team here, you could buy that. But yeah, I forgot about that. That we have looked at other sports models, but it just, the attendance and the number of games aren't there. You know, at baseball, you got 81 games. And it's a great model because we're only open 81 days a year and we're open 5 hours a day. So it's not, you know, and that includes before a game and after game. You know, literally after game, once the game's over, literally you shut down in 10 or 15 minutes. All concessions do. They really, yes.
What do your employees do after you shut down from 81 baseball season? Or?
Good question. You know what? What we do is we pull our best employees from surrounding stores to work in the baseball stadiums for those specific dates. So when they're not working at Busch, they're back in the Galleria or they're back in West County. But it's almost become like the Oscars. It's a privilege to work at a ballpark store. So the competition's pretty good. You know, I want to work at Busch Stadium. I want to work at AT&T Park. I want to work at the new Nationals ballpark. So yes, that's what we do. We pull people from existing stores, and then like in St. Louis, what we'll do is some of the people from BQ, that's what we call bear quarters. We'll go down in April and May, and in September during the week, because we lose kids of school. Once school gets back in session, we lose some staff. So we'll go down and we'll, you know, some of the people at BQ will go down and actually work in the store. So. But we had a lot of fun here 2 years ago with two cute stories. During the rain out against the Tigers, I went down to the railing, and there was Jeannie Salaski from Fox, who does the pregame show with Joe Girardi. And of course, I'm in my, you know, I got my red fleece Build-A-Bear jacket, and it's 6'4½". I can't hide. So I hold up a Fredbird, and I wave to her, and she goes. And she comes over to the railing, and I said, Kelly is our store manager at Busch Stadium. I said, you give it to her. So Jeannie Shalaski comes over to the railing, introduces herself. I said, listen, compliments of Build-A-Bear Workshop, we'd like you to have your own Fredbird. And Kelly gives it to her, and it was freezing, raining cold that night. The game ended up being canceled like around 9:30 at night. And Jeannie Shalaski had a hand warmer, and she gave it to Kelly. She said, honey, you could use this more than I can, and she gave her a head warm. Long story short, she took Fredbird, they put it on the set of the Fox pregame show. So when they went back, there's Joe Girardi, Jeannie Shalaski, and Kennedy, and there's Fredbird sitting at the front face of their desk. So, you know, you just work the room, you get creative, and then like I did with Steinbrenner, how do you get into the Steinbrenner empire? You know, so it's some of the tricks of the trade in terms of how do you get an audience and you got to be patient, you got to be persistent, and you got to know when to put the foot on the pedal, you got to know when to back off, because if you come on too strong, you could lose the sale, so to speak. So it's a unique balance in terms of, you know, how do you do this kind of stuff. But yeah, Jeannie Shalaski, and there was another moment that I can't think of, where again with some celebrity or baseball team that we made a connection with, other than Joe Torre and the Yankees. I'm having a senior moment right now. Any other questions? Yes.
I heard a rumor that you were closing some St. Louis stores.
I'm sorry. We closed the Friends to Be Made.
Oh.
Only the 4 stores. There's only one in St. Louis in the Galleria. It's only the Friends to Be Made.
Have you looked at any possibilities with Springfield's Museum, Illinois?
I'm sure I have. If either I haven't, but again, if they don't have $2 million, it's tough to do. It's real tough to do. Now we'll gamble sometimes, like with the Nationals. Okay, the Nationals, they're drawing a little bit over 200 now, 2 million, but we took a gamble with them because we figured, hey, it's a new ballpark, it's the nation's capital. We still maybe want to see if we have an opportunity to reconnect with the Smithsonian someday. We would love to be in a national zoo in Washington. So, you know, we figured there was more rewards than risk, and it did happen because we participated in a Junior Ranger program this April on the monument wall there, and you know, Mrs. Bush showed up and we gave away, kids came into our little booth and were able to make a bear. So we got a connection with the National Monuments and Junior Park Service. You got the Nationals. So hopefully what you do is as you start spreading yourself around, you get the people that you want to get, you kind of surround them and say, okay, you want to be part of Build-A-Bear and the brand experience. Anything else? Yes.
How big is 800 square feet? I mean, I have no idea.
Have you been to Busch Stadium?
Yeah.
That's about 850. It's like 905, but that's pretty much the ideal size, give or take 50 feet.
Your best year, how many bears did that were made?
Right now as a company, we're over 60 million sold.
Wow. For you?
No, for our 10 years.
60 million
Yeah.
bears around?
60 million and growing. And growing.
For the average person that comes to the store, what's the average retail sale?
In our mall stores, the average retail sales is about $35. Off-mall locations tend to be higher. Reason? You can only buy these mascot bears at the store in a location. And some of the assortment is unique to that location as well, because you have to have a reason for the people to go into your store. So like with Busch, Fred Bird, the year they opened up the new ballpark, we had a Busch Stadium inaugural bear. That's why we like new stadiums, because you could do the mascot bear, you do a stadium bear with the inaugural patch on the paw. In St. Louis, we do a solid red bear because of obviously cardinal red. We do a dugout bear, and we do a ballpark monkey bear. So we have like 5 skins or bears. We call them skins, bears, or animals in Busch Stadium. Any other questions? Yes?
How many stores do you have worldwide?
We have we're close to about 350. And our goal is to be at 350. We're probably a little over 300 now. As you know, besides North America, which includes Canada, a couple of years ago, we bought the Bear Factory in England. So those 28 stores we own. I think there's a store in Scotland and Ireland, so it's about 30, give or take. And then we have franchisees, international franchisees in about 15 countries. Hong Kong, Singapore, Korea, I think Switzerland. So we're a worldwide brand. So you got your traditional mall stores. You got these unique off-mall locations. We got our Build-A-Bear stores in the UK, Scotland, and Ireland, and then we have our international franchisees. Just two things I want to leave you with. I got to get the book out of here. This is a letter we received from Sandy Bassler, the director of Jefferson College Child Development Center. Dear Mr. Hogan, the wonderful activities inspired by your Build-A-Bear workshop adoptions. At the Jefferson College Child Development Center, a family center adding to a Build-A-Bear workshop is scheduled each fall semester for the preschool classrooms. The children, ages 3 to 5, narrow the choices down to a few. They chart this, and then they vote on which animal will become their classroom mascot for the year. The children are totally invested in this mascot because they chose it and built it. This involvement makes it all the more their own. The animal goes home with a different child each night. The families write in a journal about the bear's visits to the children's home, and this is read to the children by the teacher at the group time the next day. What can appear to be such a simple idea becomes a meaningful literacy activity, a family involvement and cultural diversity activity, sharing, turn-taking, nutritional education, geographically. Our animals have traveled all over the world and on and on. So much learning taking place, and it is very exciting. The center has been doing this for many years. I also want to say how we have always appreciated the assistance of your child-friendly staff who are totally accommodating to what sometimes can be a fairly large group of not-so-patient preschoolers. When I read that you were going to be a guest speaker, I thought you might want to know that Build-A-Bear has played a really important role in the educational program for our younger students at Jefferson College, so thanks for that. One of the things that Build-A-Bear, and this is not a paid political announcement since I worked for a Fortune 500, big Fortune 500 company at that time was May Department Stores. Maxine in Build-A-Bear Workshop really believes in giving back to the community. And she's very active in Teach Across America, reading programs for kids, animal preservation programs, etc. So, you know, for a mid-sized company, we really do believe in giving back to into the community and getting involved with it. And I've also done some volunteer teaching. My oldest daughter went to Corriers High School, and for the last 2 years, you know, for a semester, I've been going back and teaching some business courses to juniors and seniors, basically what's really happening in the business world and take place versus what you read in the book, or what you read in the book and how do you apply it. And I finished my 2 sessions by teaching the kids how to prepare for an interview and how do you research a company in terms of so that you have more knowledge and you're better prepared. And I also put in about, you know, whoever the HR person is that answers the phone, that administrative assistant is the person you really got to get to know. Maxine, in her book, she wrote a book, The Bare Necessities of Business. In it, and I didn't find out until one day, my neighbors called me up and said, boy, you got a great job. She's talking about do what you love and you got to do it with passion. Another colleague, John Hogan, also lives out his love for sports by negotiating deals with all the various teams we have merchandising agreements with. This is the great line. John actually gets paid to go to baseball stadiums and watch a sport that he loves. So in parting, it's never too late. I didn't find this career out until I was 54. About, you know, after 5 retail jobs, 35 years in the business, you know, I could actually say, you know what, at my age, I get to play with little bears, and I get to go visit baseball teams and watch my favorite sport. Any other questions? Well, thank you. It was my pleasure.